Good evening, folks. Welcome to this edition of Curveball Convos with the Carolina Curveball Boys. We have a special show tonight and a theme going forward that I'm going to announce right now. Each Thursday night, we're going to have a guest for the first segment of our weekend preview show going forward. Those guests will range from friends to coaches to players, media personalities. And the first one to the Carolina Curveball Combos is my good friend, mentor, none other than Stephen Igoe of Hoist the Colors 247 Sports. Stephen, how's it going, sir?
It's going good, man. I am honored to be, I guess, the first guest in this segment, and I just want to know when is Cliff Godwin making an appearance?
Cliff Godwin will make an appearance when the Pirates go to Omaha because I think that
All
will
right.
the time where he will finally be relaxed and be even keeled to answer an email or look at a text. So I was not going to text him or email him this week because it was not a good week for him, as we know, this past Tuesday.
Yeah, today would not be the ideal time, and thus far, coming off midweek games would not be the ideal time, especially in-state games. ECU having trouble winning those, but yeah, plenty to talk about. I mean, we got three ECU guys here, so I'm sure we can talk a lot of ECU, but excited to talk Carolina baseball in general, all across the Carolinas.
Yes, sir, for sure. And the other guest here is Reed Tobin, who now resides in Concord, basically lives on UNC Charlotte's campus, for those who don't know. So he's now a resident 49er. Isn't that right, Reed?
If you want to say that, sure.
And we already have some comments from some colleagues of Steven and friends. Y'all got the same music we do. Yes, we
Bro,
do.
they changed the intro music. It sucks now. It used to be a pretty banger, and now it's just like even more generic than you could dream up of a generic song.
And then he follows it up with, how's the bottom feel, Steven?
Bottom feels great, man. It's nice to change it up every now and then.
I agree. And then Brady Thomas, current Hoist the Colors intern, the next great line of Hoist Colors intern goes, three of my favorite gentlemen talking ball on this five evening. I'm surprised he's tuned in, not locked into March Madness right now. Brady, thank you for tuning in for sure. And we will start off this by talking about just how me and Steven met during my junior year of college. I emailed him on a random day and was like, "Hey, do you want an intern?" And he was like, "Sure, but I need to talk to you first." And then we interviewed, and the rest is history. 2 years later, I graduated, went to work for Stitch Golf, and then a year later, now I'm changing my jobs again and started Carolina Curveball. So much has happened, but I'm very grateful for this journey. Stephen Igoe is a major success, a major part of the success of Carolina Curveball because he showed me the path, how to do this. So all my flowers go to him because we would not be here without him and his support. So thank you, sir.
I can say that I played a teeny tiny spectacle in Carolina Curveball, if that. I mean, it's like this was all Kaysen's idea. I mean, he had a lot of ball knowledge, so to speak. Definitely more basketball knowledge than anything. I would have thought if you could rewind 2 years ago, be like, all right, Kaysen started a media company. I wouldn't have guessed college baseball, but I think he kind of fell in love with it, covering East Carolina, and just awesome what you guys have started. You know, I've enjoyed listening to the podcast. You, Braxton, and Reed, and the rest of the guys really know your stuff. And honestly, given, you know, we all know like ECU's got a passionate fan base. I'm sure we'll talk a lot of ECU, but like given a lot of these schools that just don't get media coverage in college baseball, despite it being really an elite region for college baseball, I think you guys shed light on a lot of great performances we otherwise wouldn't hear about, a lot of stories, a lot of storylines, and just players and teams that honestly just don't get the coverage they deserve. So I think you guys have grown exponentially since you started. As you know and have found out, it's not easy to build something from scratch, but man, it really makes you, you know, it's really rewarding when you see it start to take off. And I think for you guys, it really is. And I'm happy for you all. But it's been a lot of hard work, I'm sure, but definitely proud of you guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It is definitely a grind. I remember when I started this, you told me it's going to be an absolute grind, but if you work hard, stay up those late nights, early mornings, it will pay off. And I am beyond grateful for all of our followers, all of our listeners. We just hit over 1,900 followers yesterday. we're scratching the door at 2,000, and just appreciate the follows, the likes, the subscriptions. We really appreciate it. We're going to continue this forever as long as we can. I know all of us have real jobs, but we also put a lot of effort and time into this. So we appreciate that, of course. And tonight we're going to start off, since Stephen Igoe is here, to talk about East Carolina. East Carolina is not off to the best start, Reed. But Reed, how would you grade East Carolina's season to start off? They have played some good competition in Carolina as well as Coastal. If I look at ECU strength of schedule right now, it is 89th with an RPI of 93. Reed, what would you say is going on in Greenville right now?
Well, like I said at the beginning of the season, I told you and Braxton I thought they would struggle out of the gates, obviously missing Towers and Riley Johnson, of a tough schedule at the beginning of the season. They're not winning the big games like they were last year. Obviously, they won the Carolina series last year. But I mean, they've showed signs of life over the past couple of weeks. They've won, 8 out of their last 10 games. Unfortunate on Tuesday night they couldn't get it done, but they're 3-0 in conference play. Good chance to possibly get to 6-0 this weekend. So I mean, I think they're trending upward. There's still going to be some growing pains with this team for how young they are.
Yeah, no question about it. And that was really the census going into the year. I mean, if you look at last year's roster versus this year's roster, and going into the season this year, you look at them, and I mean, you're missing all conference guys, near all American guys. I know Trey Savage was, Carter Cunningham, Justin Wilcox, and the list goes on, and you're plugging in these freshmen that don't have experience. And I know Steven touched on it a lot during his show with Ducks on the Pond and his daily show at 94.3 The Game, that it's really going to take time for them to figure this out. And you can really kind of go both ways of, was it good to play Carolina and Coastal this early, or was it bad? Because would you have better results towards the end of the year, or is it good to play them at the beginning of the year so these freshmen and young arms do have this experience at the beginning of the year to grow? But Steven, your thoughts on what's going on in Greenville, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been like Reed hit on, like kind of what we anticipated to a degree. Now, I think the thing that has hurt ECU is playing those teams early. We knew it would be a challenge, but not to get one against North Carolina and then to not win that Sunday game against Coastal. If you win that series finale against Coastal, like, I think you feel a million times better right now, because you would have a marquee series win under your belt. Coastal right now is 4th in the RPI. If you find a way to win that game that wins extra innings or walk it off there in the 9th, I think you have a much different feel. And the other thing that's kind of hurt ECU is the rest of their non-conference schedule. Honestly, like, VCU is a regional team last year. VCU might be the worst team in college baseball. I mean, they are horrific. You play 2 there in the midweek. They suck. They're killing your RPI. You play William & Mary, which is usually a respectable regional foe. They're terrible. You sweep them. So that's 5 games that, instead of like quad 3 or quad 2, those are quad 4 games. And like you guys hit on, ECU has not been able to win the marquee game, so to speak. So you look at it right now, the resume is extremely light. You're 93rd in the RPI. You're 1-6 quad 1, 1-2 quad 2, 13-2 quad 4. So like the schedule overall has not been kind of how they drew it up. The good news is, once you get past Rice, which is another bottom dweller in the RPI, just inside the top 200, the schedule does pick up a little bit in terms of RPI. FAU is 77th. Charlotte is 126 on the road. UAB is 91st. That's on the road. Could be a quad 2 series. Tulane's 145, which is respectable. At Wichita, they're 125. UTSA is 71st. USF is 43. And that's on the road. So that could be a quad 1 series. So you've got opportunities ahead. You've got the midweek games as well, which we can get into. But, I think it's just – I think the team's playing better. So, now, how much of that is the schedule? I think definitely a factor. But, like, they look better, especially when they're throwing strikes on the mound. I think the offense is starting to come around. So, like, even the other game versus Duke, if that fly ball in the first inning is caught, I think it's a much different game. So, like, they kind of had some things go against them. you win that game, you're feeling a lot better as well. But it's just right now you're beating the teams you should beat. You're losing to the teams you should theoretically lose to. So you kind of are a middling team right now until you prove otherwise. Is how I see it.
Correct. Yes, I 100% agree with you on that. And as you pointed out, with like for example, the VCU 2 games in the midweek, yeah, they're bad for the RPI. It's like a double-edged sword because you're losing points playing them. They're a bad baseball team, but also on the other side, those young guys did get some confidence. They did hear the bat, hit the ball, and just they got some good wins and just kind of some confidence building. But then I'm not saying this is the case, but I mean I feel like going into some other games, they feel like some teams are kind of just going to roll over because they are East Carolina, partially to that. And I definitely think that this team, for the first time in I think 2 or 3 years for East Carolina, really has to like prove themselves. Because last year, going into games, you're going into a ballpark with Trey Savage, Carter Cunningham, Jacob Starling, and now you're going into it with a bunch of young and unproven guys. Yes, there are still veterans on the team like Boucher, Dixon Williams, Colby Wallace. I would consider a veteran. I mean, he's still young, but he's still a major piece of that team. But then, as we want to touch on to the midweek games, as Scott says, I know this has been a discussion for me and Reed for a long time, and Steve, and I know y'all have talked about it on Ducks in the Pond for a long time. Reed, I'll let you touch on this. The midweek woes have been there for many years. Not having a true Tuesday night guy has haunted the Pirates for years. And I remember the conversations last year when they got what was his name? The transfer from Chris Kaler. That there were conversations last year of him starting the season being that midweek guy, and then I think his first start was at Campbell that year, and he just last year and did not play well. And Reed really goes to show that we really do need that midweek starter to anchor that midweek.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it this past Tuesday, I believe they had 10 guys. You're not going to win baseball games when you put that many guys on base. Against Wilmington too. You know, they had control of that game, and then the bullpen just kind of fell apart. Like he says, I mean, it's been an issue over the years. It just feels like the pitching has just continuously let them down on Tuesday night games year in and year out.
And I don't want to get it twisted here on this past Tuesday. Duke is a very good baseball team. This past weekend they went up to Charlottesville and swept Virginia. Now what is Virginia? That's up to be seen. They were preseason number 2. I know me and Rita that talks about them. I mean, let's take a moment here. Texas A&M and Virginia 1 and 2 preseason, now out of the rankings. That's very interesting to me. And Steven, this is a good Duke team. They have talent on the mound. We saw Talon and Kyle Johnson on Tuesday. Kyle Johnson, I don't know how in the world they figured him out, but they did. But then Talon really came in and did his thing.
Yeah, I mean, Johnson is out there throwing 96 miles per hour and, in a middle relief role in a midweek game. And I know he struggled, but like that from the left side in college baseball, you just don't see. And look, I mean, Braden Burris got a swing off 2-run jack. It was a huge moment. I thought for a minute ECU was going to find a way to come back and win it. And obviously Talon, I mean, his arm slot, another lefty throwing 93, 94, like it looks like probably 97 with his length and his arm slot. So Duke, I know they've had issues on the mound, consistency, but they've got an embarrassment of talent. They do every year. Pollard's done a heck of a job there. Obviously, there are some certain aspects of Pollard and Duke baseball, which I truly dislike, but you can't deny he's done a heck of a job there. And at the end of the day, like you lost a close, hard-fought baseball game. Like Reed said, if you don't walk 9 and hit another guy, like you probably win the game. Duke walked 1 and hit 2. So that's a 7 base runner difference in free passes. So I thought ECU held its own, could have easily won the game. It just didn't happen. As far as the midweek starter thing, it's just tough, I mean, it's especially once you get into conference play, it's hard to like try and save pitching for the midweek, even though for ECU, the RPI bump is probably worth it. But then if that ends up costing you a game at Rice, it kind of cancels each other out. So although you could argue it'd be nicer to have a quad 1 win versus a quad 4 loss. I don't know the exact math there, but ECU right now, like they just released the TBA for this weekend. Right now it's Ethan Norby, TBA. So you don't even have a second weekend starter. So, like, until ECU can find a second, third weekend starter, it's like I'm just trying to get through the midweeks as they get here. And I think the staff kind of approaches it the same way.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about that, I mean, I remember in 2022, I mean, that was kind of the situation with the pitching. I mean, you lose Carson at the beginning of the year to a crazy situation, and every weekend read, it was kind of not really all hands on deck towards the end, but during that run, it really was like a really holistic approach. It wasn't really like last year was very set in stone with you had Trey and then Zach when he was healthy, and then Sunday kind of flip flopped around, but Reed, how important is it to have that consistency, or do you think it's possible for them to just roll out arms and just as a holistic approach?
I mean, like Steven was saying, it's kind of hard to save guys for that Tuesday game, but you look at it. I mean, ECU has, I think, State coming up this Tuesday. They need to start winning quad one games to kind of bolster their resume. Obviously, Rice is a huge is not going to help the calls. I'm not saying that you save Norby for Tuesday, for example, but maybe they can look to pitch Pruitt some more on Tuesdays or something along those lines.
Yeah, Steven, were you shocked to see Young and Pruitt both pitch on Tuesday?
I was a little surprised they went to Young that early, but at the same time, I think like Reed said, like at this point, them throwing Young, Pruitt, Williams, Hunter, if that doesn't tell you that they're trying to win a midweek game for quad one, quad two, then I don't know what will. So I think Cliff Godwin, look, he's smart. He knows the RPI matters. He didn't throw any of those guys to where they won't be available this weekend, but like you throw them out there because you got a shot to win the game. And I thought it was the right play. And I know Young, I think he ended up throwing over 60 pitches. You would like to see maybe that a little down because he probably can't come back till Saturday now, at least for a decent stint. But I think you're going to see that as much as possible. I mean, right now, you really only trust a handful of guys on the staff to throw strikes. And, we saw Young struggle with his command a little bit, tighter strike zone than normal, I thought. But that seems to be a theme in these midweek games for whatever reason. So that's something ECU is going to have to figure out regardless of who's on the mound.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And another thing I want to ask Steven about is the freshmen, the young guys, Trammell to Burris to Sean Jenkins to just a bunch of the guys all throughout the lineup. Peltier. What are your thoughts on them? Have other guys exceeded expectations for some? Have any of them have you had expectations for some that have not met those expectations, and going forward in the future with this team 2 or 3 years, how do you see those guys like Austin Irby perform?
Yeah, I mean, look, if this was 5 years ago, I think ECU would be setting up the foundation for like incredible baseball in the years to come. And they might still be doing that. It's just like we don't know because of the portal and because of NIL. Like all these guys could be getting recruited into the portal. I don't think that'll ever happen to where ECU loses all of its talent with the culture they have here. But we saw last year with Bristol Carter, Zach Root moving on that they're not immune to it. Now you look at the sheer number of freshmen that are playing. And we haven't seen anything even close to this in the Cliff Godwin era. He typically relies on older players. It is very hard for freshmen to crack the lineup. I mean, Braden Burris, Austin Irby, on the mound, Lance Williams, Sean Jenkins, two of your weekend starters are freshmen. We've seen Gabe Beschloss pitch a little bit. We've seen several other freshman arms get opportunities. You mentioned also Braxton Trammell, who we thought would play a huge role initially, kind of slumped to begin the year. Alex Peltier still figuring out his swing, but has had to step into a larger role due to the Riley Johnson injury. I think defensively he's been outstanding. And I mean, it's almost like you can look everywhere, and almost all the team projects to be back next year outside of Ethan Young and Dixon Williams. So like, it's frustrating, but if they can keep this nucleus together with the class coming in, they could be damn good next year and the year after. So like, I'm starting to look at it as, all right, even if they don't win big this year, even if they don't make a regional, maybe the growing pains are worth it if they can keep this nucleus together. I think the future is extremely bright, assuming they can. And, playing at ECU is not for everybody. It takes a lot of reps to learn how to play a Cliff Godwin style offense and defense and pitching. But I think this team is showing it can handle it and getting better, which is encouraging for the short and long-term future.
100%, no doubt about it. And to your point, if you look at past ECU teams and Cliff Godwin teams, all these recruiting classes just stacked on top of each other. I mean, it starts with, Brian. I mean, just you can go from like Bryant Packard to the Ryder Giles to Zach Agnos to just Josh Moreland, and just the list goes on and on. Excuse me?
Alec Burleson.
Correct, yes. And just like when you look at this year's team, and you guys have touched on it, how I think it's the 21 and 22 class and the 23 class, there's a lot of holes there that they brought guys in, but a lot of them transferred that. I'll let you touch on that to some more here, but this core of young guys right now, if they can keep it together, I think we can see a group like the last 2 years with the core of Carter Cunningham, Jenkins Coward, Josh Moreland type guys, Jacob Starling going forward.
And really, I mean, outside of Moreland, none of those guys played as freshmen. They all played sophomore and beyond. But yeah, that class, really Dixon Williams class, another guy who didn't play as a freshman, who is now like a centerpiece. So like most of these guys develop and then play. This year, we're seeing them play right out of the gate. But either way, Dixon Williams class, it's really him and Parker Bird are the only guys left from that class. I don't have the list in front of me, but like that was Colby Thorndyke's class. That was some other guys in that. I think Zach Root was in that class. You had several
in that class.
Rasmussen was in that class, so he's now at Tulane. So for whatever reason, like that class didn't work out, and that should be your junior class, and that's creating a lot of the issues we're seeing now, especially in the lineup.
Yeah, no question about it. And I know, Reed, a lot of people over the last couple of years, especially 2 to 3 years, have always screamed and screamed and screamed as soon as the final out is finished for ECU to end the season. We need to go in the portal and get bats. We need to go in the portal and get bats. We need to go in the portal and get right-handed bats. And we have just pounded this persona because of how, I mean, you can say what you want, but I mean, LSU really changed the game when they won the national championship and when they essentially bought a team. And I mean, say what you want, but it worked. And that was one of the best college baseball time if you look at that lineup. But Reed, what is your thoughts on the philosophy of balancing that Cliff Godwin style of bringing these guys in and growing them from when they're seeds to when they're fully planted? Or do you think it's okay to sprinkle in some guys like Alex Boucher or Ethan Young?
Well, you know me, I've always told you they need to splash in the portal. That's just not who Cliff is. You know, he's going to recruit. He's going to go into the portal a little bit, but he's going to get guys that he wants in his system. They're not going to go out and get the big top name in the portal. He's going to trust his upperclassmen who have been in the program for years to teach the younger guys. But, you know, this is a whole new team, a lot of young guys, and, you know, first time really in Cliff's time here that he's had to rely on such a young team.
There's no question about it, and really looking forward to seeing what ECU does the rest of the year. I think we'll be just fine. I mean, the panic button's hit by a lot of people. If you go on Hoisted Colors right now, there is a thread with, I think, 100 downvotes saying that we need to fire Cliff Godwin. So it is just getting ridiculous out here. Steven, spring football cannot come soon enough, right? Well, it is here, but are you glad to be doing spring football?
Yeah, it's man, it's a lot going on in a short amount of time. That and the basketball portal and NCAA March Madness, which, you know, opening day, college baseball, like it seems like it's like an avalanche. But at the same time, it is a good distraction when ECU, because honestly, at times it's felt like all we have from April on to talk about is ECU baseball, which is a good thing when they're winning. But when they're not winning as consistently, they're still 15-10. It's not like they're the VCU of college baseball right now, but it's, I don't know. I mean, it's we just kind of take it for granted, and it's not as easy as it seems to sustain success. We were talking about Georgia Tech earlier, like how up and down they've been. Yeah, they're good this year, but like they were probably 500-ish or, you know, around there a lot of the past few years as well, along with a good year mixed in every now and then. So like ECU's consistent success is not easy to do. Cliff Godwin obviously knows what he's doing, and yeah, times are changing. Yeah, he would probably be the first to say he has to continue to adapt. Maybe a season like this kind of opens his eyes even more, but at the same time, I do think a season like this will pay dividends in the near and long term future, as painful as some of these nights are.
Yeah, for sure. And to wrap up the discussion on ECU, Scott, our good friend, says, would love to get some more healthy players out of the portal. We've gotten a few talented transfer that haven't been able to play. this kind of seems like a Kevin Keats style, how Kevin Keats always has those mystery players that never seem to play. ECU has a couple. Ryan Towers has not played yet. And Tolik. And what was that guy last year or 2 years ago, the A&M transfer? What was his name?
Oh, yeah. Lefty. Gosh, what was his name? He never pitched. He was he was another guy who was a guy who was highly touted. And that's the thing. I was texting with somebody, and they're just like, especially pitching wise, you do your background, you do medical checks, but like Jonathan Childress, as Scott points out, you're not doing like full on MRIs to see the extent of any damage. So like, you don't really know what you're getting half the time, and that they're in the portal for a reason, no matter how talented they are. And especially at ECU, like ECU's NIL right now, they're just covering expenses for scholarship costs. They're not paying guys money. They don't have that type of money for baseball. So, like, you're not going to go out and get a top 50 player out of the transfer portal. That's just not realistic as currently constructed with the NIL. So, it's a gamble, and it's worked for some. And in other cases, it hasn't worked. Nick Moran, another guy who's been inconsistent out of the portal. You expected more out of him, quite honestly. Ethan Young's been good, but he was a JUCO transfer. So, it is a crapshoot at times. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and the last one I want is Grubbs. I mean, he has done.
Grubbs. He had one appearance.
And then we can talk about last year. Kaler was a major disappointment in terms of, because I remember going in when we got him, the rumor was, or not the rumor, I mean, they said he'd be a midweek starter, and that did not pan out too well as the season went on. But that is what we're going to wrap up with for ECU Talk tonight. And now we're going to get Stephen Igoe's picks on the Carolina Curveball must-watch games, the 5 must-watch games. Reed
ECU and Rice is up here, right?
No, sir, it is not. It is not up here. And Reed Tobin made this list. These are his games that he picked. Reed Tobin, going to start off with, why is South Carolina and Tennessee not on here?
No, I think with the way how South Carolina is playing currently, they're 1-5 to start off SEC play. I had a chance to catch them Tuesday night in Charlotte against UNC. But that fan base, and not a happy fan base right now. Rough start for Paul Maneri, and just with the way Tennessee is playing right now, it's such a high level. I think we all would have picked Tennessee.
Yes, Stephen. If you are not, I don't think you're too plugged in, but we have a really solid South Carolina following that we're very thankful for, and they are like, I have never. I mean, it is like worse than any fan base I've ever seen right now. I mean,
telling recruits to unfollow their account, everything like that.
Yes. They are telling recruits to, like, if you're following me, do not commit here. The program has no directions. And these are accounts like 10,000 followers, these South Carolina accounts.
South Carolina baseball is a different animal. And we talk about ECU this season being kind of disappointing, but like, look at South Carolina. I know they won back-to-back championships. Really, like, since then, they have been pretty underwhelming overall.
Yes,
now they're in the gauntlet of the SEC, but like, comparative to expectations, since they built that new stadium, they have been pretty bad. And, I mean, there's a reason they wanted to hire Cliff Godwin, who, by the way, I guess this fan wants to fire now. That's an ECU fan. But Cliff didn't want to take the job. Paul Maneri, who he ironically worked for before, took the job, and I'm sure he'll do a good job there. But right now, it's not looking great. Pretty much every good team they've faced, they've lost to.
Yeah, it's not. Has South Carolina been back to Omaha since they lost the chance of three-peating in 2012? I don't think they have.
That's a good.
I highly doubt it. Because when
I think off the top of the head, because they had a chance for the three-peat in 2012 and then lost to UCLA.
It looks like 2012 was it. That was the last time they were in Omaha.
Or Arizona is who they lost to.
Wow. Well, that sure is something. Reed, if you want to read off the list of games for Steven to pick off of, starting because this is your list, sir. So go ahead.
Yeah, we'll start off. So first one we have Red Hot Eastern Tennessee State squad. Gave Tennessee their first loss of the season another week ago. They traveled to Upstate this week.
Coming off a big win, a run rule in Raleigh.
Run rule state.
All right, so East Tennessee State, fellas, 31 in the RPI. Non-conference strength of schedule 17. They are on a roll, but they have played 3 true road games. They are 1-2 in those true road games. Y'all know nobody has a home field advantage. like the USC Upstate fellas. So I know Braxton's not here to talk about it, but give me Upstate to not only win the series but sweep it.
Wow. Braxton is right now somewhere shaking up and down, jumping for joy, jumping to each other. Steven takes the Spartans.
Statement week.
Okay. All right. And then read the next one.
So, yeah, next one, in-state rivalry. We got NC State at Duke. Big series this weekend.
Yeah, this is one I was saying earlier pre-show. I don't really know what NC State is yet. They have been pretty inconsistent. Similar to ECU and some of the other teams in the state, they have beaten up on bad teams. They're 12-2 quad 4, 2-3 quad 1, 0-2 quad 2. So they have struggled against good competition. I know Duke has to an extent as well, but I think they're getting right. I know their rotation's a little bit in flux right now. I like Duke here to win 2 of 3. I mean, y'all know Jack Coombs Field is just like a raucous environment. Tough to roll in there and win college baseball games as a road team. Chris Pollard, he'll have the boys fired up. Give me Duke to win 2 out of 3 here.
Wow, Duke 2 out of 3. Okay.
All right, and the next one, we got Clemson coming off the big series win against Wake. Got crushed by Coastal, though, on Tuesday. At Georgia Tech, Danny Hall announced today that he will be retiring at the end of the season, his 32nd year here at Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech has been awesome, and this is a prove it week for me though for Georgia Tech because you look at their ACC schedule thus far. Virginia Tech, they won 2 out of 3. That's solid. Pittsburgh, they won 2 out of 3. That's solid. They swept Notre Dame, which, by the way, that Notre Dame being 14th in RPI seems a little rich, but I guess that's what happens when you don't play any home games. That's pretty much the bottom tier of the ACC, and I need to see more. I like this Georgia Tech team. I know they can rake. We were talking earlier, like their home run totals, their average is ridiculous, but Clemson, I am worried a little bit about the letdown spot here. Coming off a big series win. Now maybe they got that out of their system with the loss to Coastal, but I think Clemson finds a way to win 2 out of 3, but I'm expecting another really good series.
Wow. Taking the Tigers on the road in hot Atlanta.
All right, moving along, we got Campbell been playing much better of recent, with a series win against Wilmington last weekend. Crushed Charlotte Tuesday night, traveled down to Charleston this weekend.
Yeah, Campbell boys, you look at them, man, awful start. Pretty awful. And then the last 3 weekends, 2 out of 3 against Texas State, down but still respectable opponent. 2 out of 3 against UConn, same type of deal. 2 out of 3 against UNCW, and then smoking Charlotte. So I think Campbell's getting hot at the right time. Charleston, up and down. Looks like another year where their non-conference strength of schedule could hurt them if they're in at-large territory. 208 non-conference strength of schedule. Again, VCU killing everybody's non-conference strength of schedule because they played them 3 games to start the year. I'm torn on this one, fellas. I really am. I'm trying to talk myself through it. I don't think Charleston's great, but I give me the Cougars at home to win 2 out of 3. I know Campbell's playing well, but I'll just take the home team here to win 2.
All right, taking the Cougars down there in Charleston. And then finally, read the last one, the barn burner.
Last one, everyone has their eyes on this one. Wofford coming off a big win on Tuesday night, beating Troy on the road at Citadel.
I tell you what, man, Citadel, Joseph P. Riley Jr. Park is a tough place to play. I didn't even know that was a thing. But I was looking at the Citadel. I'll be honest, I haven't watched a single second of Citadel baseball in my entire life. But they're playing pretty solid this year. Wofford, though, there's been some controversy at times. They've been higher than ECU in the rankings. And I think they're going to prove why this weekend. I think they're going to go into the Citadel. They're going to win the series in a big SoCon series. So give me the Wofford Terriers on the road to take down the Bulldogs.
Wow. Reed, comments on those picks?
I like them all. I think all have pretty similar picks. Might have something different, though, for The Clemson Georgia Tech one, y'all will find out though tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, you will find out our picks. And I want to give a final thank you to Steven for coming on to this program tonight. He was great, always is great, a good friend of mine, mentor, helped me pave the way. And someone else says thank you to you in the comments too. My good friend KJ Keach. Keep up the great work, Steven. You've always done a great job.
KJ, I didn't know you were a fan, but hey, I appreciate the shout out. And by the way, according to the Hoist the Colors burner account, your father is coming to join Mike Schwartz's coaching staff. So I guess we'll get ready for that.
Yeah, we got to get Steven off here quickly before he gets onto his his burner rant. I've heard from him a couple of times. Reed, burners are the worst, right?
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, that's gosh. I shouldn't have even given them a shout out. I have reported them, by the way, so I'm looking forward to their getting shut down.
Good. Well, Steven, thank you for coming on. Enjoy your Mariners tonight. March Madness is still underway. The two games playing right now are not close at all. Alabama defeats BYU 113-88, and Florida is up 82-66 right now. So, yeah, I think I'll be turning on the Mariners game too if the games keep going on at this rate.
Yeah, we'll see if Arizona can give Duke a game. Caleb Love, maybe he'll drop a 30 spot on the Blue Devils to end their season. But yeah, Mariners A's. I laugh just saying it because it's so West Coast baseball. But whatever. I enjoyed it, guys, and I'm glad to be back anytime. We'll have to do it again.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Jim.
See you, sir. All right. That was absolutely great to have Steven Igoe on from Hoist the Colors. Absolute blast Reed. Getting his picks. Are you shocked by his picks? I was shocked that he picked College of Charleston. I thought he would have picked Campbell for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I like Charleston this weekend too. Yeah, I mean, we all know that Campbell's been playing much better ball, like Steven was saying. But, I was kind of surprised by the upstate predicting. That's kind of a bold take, the sweep. Eastern Tennessee handed Tennessee their first loss of the season a few days ago. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but y'all will find out tomorrow morning.
We are going to see for sure. We have a couple more comments to get to. Reed from our friend KJ Keach. Reed, why is your lighting so dark? Where are you, buddy?
I am in my closet, KJ, so that might explain the lighting.
KJ, he just moved in last weekend. Give him a break. He's
still rearranging.
So rearranging. And then KJ Keats says, "Go Pirates!" Reed, are the rumors true? Is the Keats family coming down to Greenville?
I hope it's true.
Would you take Kevin Keats as the head coach in Greenville?
Absolutely.
Yep. We would go to a Final Four. And as Scott Lordbatcher at Keep Basketball Talk, tournament 3-point record set tonight. I guess Alabama probably set it. I'm guessing.
I think they hit 25 threes tonight. They were at 23 last when I checked. Let's see. 25 of 51 from downtown. Well, I hope you bet the over. I think that was the freest thing all week. Freest bet you'll ever get.
Ridiculous.
Mark Spears was 10 of 16 downtown. He had 34 points.
Oh, my Lord. That is unbelievable.
And I guess Maryland, Kevin Willard's just ready to get to Nova.
Yeah, I think Willard is not trying to win this game. I think he's already on his way to Pennsylvania, which is kind of crazy. Did you see they were booing him?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's crazy. Unfortunate for those players.
Very unfortunate, but apparently it's the AD's fault. So, I mean, we'll never know the full story, but we'll see. Now on to Reed. Let's talk about these midweek scores. We will run through them right now. New Mexico State defeated UNCG. Let's just talk about this. New Mexico State playing in Greensboro at noon on a Tuesday afternoon, excuse me. Reed, is that not interesting scheduling or what?
I think I saw on Greensboro's schedule they played them last week too. So I guess maybe New Mexico State's just having a stay on the East Coast. But I know Greensboro had a lead in that game and blew it. And, they've really struggled since beating Wake and then taking a game up at nearly winning that series at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it is very interesting Spartan program that is. I mean, very
kind of like last year's team too. beat Wake at the beginning of the season, had a couple of blew out NC State, and then kind of just fell apart after that.
Yeah, the next score I want to talk about is Western Carolina, UNC Asheville. Western picks up a 9-8 home win over UNC Asheville. This UNC Asheville team, going to just put it kind of point blank, they are not the best team. Western Carolina is not the best either, but a nice win for Western. Davidson picks up a 14-11 win over Gardner-Webb. This Gardner-Webb team is really kind of on a downhill. I mean, they have Dale Francis. They have guys who put up great numbers, but just cannot string it together. And Reed, one I want to talk about, want you to get your comments on our Wake 10-0 win over Elon. Reed, I don't think Elon's a bad team at all, but this Wake team responding after a tough weekend in Clemson, they could have won that series. The Sunday game, they did lead 6-1 in that game, and they really let that frustration out on Tuesday, Reed.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like you were saying, I mean, that series could have gone anywhere. Nothing to hang their hat on. We all know Clemson's very good, but this Wake team is really good. Look at Merrick Houston, his numbers he's putting up. Jack Winney, they're doing their thing. So just a really impressive victory on Tuesday against a tricky Elon team that's given some teams fits already this season.
Yeah, no question about it. Really looking forward to what that Wake Forest team does. Do you know who they play this weekend, Reed, off the top of your head?
I can tell you 1 second.
I
think it's a bottom of the barrel ACC team. I'm pretty sure. I think they play. Let's look. Pulling it up right now. I know it's at home. Whoever they play.
Yeah, because talk about a crazy series. Virginia Tech. Yeah, I definitely think Wake can win that series, if not sweep that series.
Yeah, I'd like them to sweep that.
And the next series the next game I want to talk about is Campbell, 14-4 win over Charlotte. In Charlotte, right next to your apartment, Reed. The Camels, as Steven touched on, they're playing some good baseball right now. Charlotte not playing bad baseball either. Charlotte is definitely up this year. Just like we said, the American has definitely improved a lot this year. But Reed, a 14-4 win over Charlotte is impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, without a doubt. Andrew Schultz continues to hit the ball really well for Camel. I think he's up hitting about 350 on the season, 7 homers, 31 RBIs. So he's leading the Campbells back. Like Steven said, they started off really poor, but new coach, like we were saying, we knew there would be some growing pains. But coming down here on Tuesday night, I would have gone to the game had I not been at one of the other games. We'll get to. Really impressive. Charlotte's just kind of been up and down the whole season. You look at Arkansas, they could have won that series. I think we thought, oh wow, this team could contend in the AAC, and then obviously they lost a close series this past weekend to a good UTSA team. So you just don't really know what you're going to get with this Charlotte team, it appears.
Yeah, and going into AAC play, it's going to be very interesting to see how they feel their way out of it, and as well their non-conference isn't going to get much easier too, because if you look across the Carolinas and you dip into Tennessee or a little bit of South Carolina, there, all good programs are on there. And speaking of dipping into South Carolina, Coastal Carolina, Reed, picking up an 8-2 win over Clemson. This Coastal Carolina squad coming off a tough weekend loss to Troy, and Coastal's had a couple hiccups in the midweek, also some big wins, but this win over Clemson, after Clemson coming off a massive, as we just talked about Wake Forest, a massive series win at home versus Wake, and this Coastal team, Reed, continues to just bolster their resume. Coastal Carolina is 4 in the RPI and number 5 in strength of schedule. They just continue to build their resume. I think they will be a regional host by the end of the season, Reed. They just continue to build it up, and they are going into Sunbelt play, playing good competition. Southern Miss just played Troy. I think their RPI will continue to climb, as well as their non-conference. So the Chanticleers are a team to watch, Reed.
Without a doubt. I mean, they went and they handed it to Clemson Tuesday night. They went up quick. I think I checked the score. They were up like 7-0 in the second inning in that game. After a hard-fought series loss against Troy this weekend. We all know Troy is a very good team, but I mean, you just look at the overall body of work for Coastal. They went down to Jacksonville, knocked off State down there. Ohio State. I know Ohio State's not that good this year, but the weekend before that, they had the Myrtle Beach, whatever they call it down there, ball or whatever they call it. Beat up on Kansas State, Washington. So they're always scheduling tough games. Yeah, we know they lost to Wake pretty bad 2 weekends ago, but in the Sun Belt, you're going to get plenty of chances to bolster your RPI.
No question about it. And talk about bolstering your RPI and also hurting it. Our colleague Braxton Bottle of his alma mater, USC Upstate, run rules NC State 15-5. They started out up 9-0. Johnny Sweeney, I think, had 7 or 8 RBIs in that game. He was absolutely on fire. Kane Sweeney, head coach's little brother, just absolutely remarkable scenes going on in the Doak. Reed, I know me and you were at other games. It was very cool to see, a little side note here on our Instagram story, to see the Doak, then Truist, and then Jack Coombs on the story, us three traveling, including money. Mr. Matt was with us too. Just Reed, just what is going on in the Doak, and this is huge for USC Upstate Spartans, and I think that's partially why Steven picked them coming off of this big midweek win over the Pack.
Yeah, that was huge. I thought State had kind of turned the corner. They had been red hot the past couple of weeks coming into that game. I think that was just a shock when Braxton was texting us the score. I think we were kind of just all in disbelief. Certainly, to go in the Doak and run rule them. I was certainly shocked by that, but shout out to that Upstate team.
Yeah, when Braxton texted 9-0 Upstate, I was kind of did a double take, like, what? Excuse me?
The third inning too.
Yes,
it was.
They put it on quick. The next one, Tennessee, Queens. Queens led in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
After through 5 innings, I believe, too. Before
I think they did this last year too.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Queens, the Royals, scrappy program. They may only have 4 wins, but they will scrap with you, no question about it.
They give Tennessee fights every single year. Not many teams can say that.
There's no question about it. As Braxton's Pops says, first time Upstate played the Pack. Yes, sir. That is a crazy first game. That one will be in the record books forever. No question about that. Reed, next game, App State with an 11-10 win over High Point. Really unlike this High Point team, I would say. I know App State's a Sunbelt team, but App State has not been extremely impressive this year like High Point has been. Just a high-scoring game in Boone on Tuesday. Really interesting outcome here, High Point, App State.
Yeah, High Point coming off the series loss, the bizarre series at Minnesota this past weekend in March. Kind of weird there, but High Point's kind of slipped it lately. They started red hot. I think what were they, like 12-2 or something like that to start? They've kind of lost some games here over the past couple of weeks, but a conference play starting for them. They just need to focus on that, and hopefully we'll be able to see them back in the tournament again this year.
Yeah, they are led by Coney Durslag, who leads the Carolinas in batting average. If I'm not mistaken, those numbers will be back out next week. A little sneak peek. We will be doing the season leaders and stat leaders for next week for the month of March and on February, March, like we did this past month. So those will be up, and he has been absolutely phenomenal for High Point. The offense has been absolutely lights out. And another program that has been kind of struggling of late, Charleston Southern. They started out red hot. They made their way into the Carolina Curveball rankings, their debut. And then since then, Reed, I honestly, let me look at their records right
here. Have they won a game since? I guess some could say we've cursed them.
They have won.
They've been swept back-to-back weekends.
They are 1-7 since they have been in the power rankings. I'll put a hand up and say that is our fault for doing that. They were playing absolutely outstanding. And then they went and played High Point, and then this weekend, forgot who they played this weekend.
They play Wilmington this upcoming weekend. I could be wrong about that, though.
Yes, and they got swept by Upstate this weekend to begin. So they're 0-6 in Big South play, which is not ideal at all. Before I move on, and then Wilmington picking up a nice win, this past Tuesday after a interesting series versus Campbell. Just kind of a head scratch there, Steven.
They play Winthrop, my fault.
Okay. Well, that'll be a big one in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Some comments I want to touch on. Scott says playing more often. He refers to the Spartans versus the Pack. Keep doing it. And then Braxton's Pop says they may not be invited back after that beatdown. Yeah, if I know anything about Elliot Avon, I don't know if he will invite them back, but that's neither here nor there. Winthrop defeats NC A&T 10-5. A nice win for friend of the program, Coach McGuire down there, Braxton's former coach. The Citadel with a nice 4-2 win over College of Charleston. A nice win for that program. Reed, what do you think Lane Tobin did? You think he hit 3 home runs that game?
Absolutely. I bet he continued his tear he's been on.
Reed Tobin's long lost brother, Lane Tobin, been tearing it up for the Bulldogs down there at the Citadel. And then Reed, the game that I was at, the one that we touched on tonight, Duke, East Carolina. Duke defeats the Pirates 6-4. That was a very interesting one. And I actually got a text, Scott, if you're still watching, from Steven saying that you saw me with an ice cream cone walking through the stadium. I know Reed made some comments about that because he saw it as well via a picture. It was a delicious ice cream cone, by the way. It was better than the game and the stadium combined. Reed, just a really interesting one here. I know that started off 2-0, felt good about it, and then just kind of slipped away, like we said, with the walks. But then again, these woes have been here for the Pirates in the midweek for a long time, and they just really got to figure it out, Reed.
Without a doubt. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, but I mean, when you walk 9 batters, 4 of those guys ended up coming in to score. You're not going to win many baseball games. But, the touch on Duke, they continue to play a lot better. They swept Virginia this past weekend, then get the good in-state victory over ECU Tuesday night, setting the stage for another big one they have this weekend against NC State.
Yeah, no question about it. And last comments on that game, as Scott Lorbatcher says, it was the same time I put my hoodie on. Well, Scott, I was hungry, and it was either a $5 ice cream cone or $12 Bojangles Supremes that were cold and stale, and a $6 water bottle. So I chose the ice cream.
Was the rumors true that the ice cream costs more than a ticket?
My ice cream did cost more than my ticket, actually, which is kind of phenomenal, but it was a delicious Nutty Buddy ice cream bar. So definitely recommend, if you go to the Coombs this weekend to watch the Pack, get you a nice ice cream bar for sure.
I want to touch on Ben Miller, though.
Go ahead, Reed.
For that. I know he started off the year. He was hitting a lot of homers to start the year, but the batting average was not there. I believe Kaysen, wasn't he down in the low 230s, I think, over the first couple weeks? But I just want to know, he's raised his batting average all the way up to 324 now.
Yes.
11 homers now in the season, 38 RBIs. So I'm sure that's at the top in college baseball. He's been a huge reason why Duke's been playing some better baseball as of lately.
Yeah, he's been a major part of that team. But another question mark is AJ Gracia, who was an All-American last year and now batting 9th in the lineup around like 160. Just really interesting there. I mean, he was potential Carolina Curveball first team all preseason. It was either him or Riley Johnson for that last pick, and really disappointing from him. He's batting 9th. I know that I have not watched Duke entirely close this year, but kind of from afar. But I know that AJ Gracia is a good player. And then when I saw him batting 9th, I was like, what in the world is going on?
You got to think, though, if he starts swinging the bat, it just makes this Duke team so much more dangerous. I mean, Tyler Albright's been swinging a good bat for them too so far. But, if Gracia gets going, look out for this Duke team.
Yes, this is a very, very good Duke team. They have so many different arms that can come out on the mound. I mean, they are just an unbelievable team in the ACC and a threat in the ACC for sure. And to keep it in the ACC, sort of, Reed, the game you were at, North Carolina versus South Carolina. We have not touched on this game yet, so kind of give us a recap of that game and the night you had down there in Truist.
Yeah, so it was my first time actually being in Truist. Just a phenomenal stadium. But it was a really high quality game, great atmosphere there. Both fan bases showed out. South Carolina got it started early. Nathan Hall leadoff homer, followed by an Ethan Petrie homer, put the Gamecocks up 2-0. But it was Luke Stevenson hit a homer. Sawyer Black, the freshman, hit another one to kind of trim in. Tyson Bass hit a homer. He had a good game. He kind of has been struggling this season. That kind of put the Heels up 8-3. I think the Heels were up 8-3 headed into the sixth, and South Carolina clawed their way back, was able to tie it at 8-8. And then Luke Stevenson hit another homer, second homer of the game. And the Heels scored 5 in the top half of the 8 to pull away and win that game 13-8. But I think that game, it didn't wrap up till about 11:30, so it was a late one, 4.5-hour game, but very, very highly entertaining game.
For sure. And where do you think both programs go from here? I know South Carolina's really in a slump, and North Carolina kind of a bumpy road as of late. What do you say, Reed?
Yeah, going into that game, I would say both teams just have not been playing well. Obviously, Carolina started the season on fire, starting 14-0. Struggling in ACC play, losing the series to Louisville. Who else did they lose to start? It's forgetting me. Who did they lose opening? Carolina. Who'd they lose to opening weekend?
Of ACC?
Yeah, of Stanford. Sorry, yeah, losing to Stanford, Louisville. Able to take the series back against BC this past weekend. So getting a big win Tuesday night. Hopefully gets their confidence back. They get Miami at home this weekend. So, good chance for them, to possibly sweep this weekend. Miami's really been struggling lately. But this South Carolina team, when they play good, they've taken care of all the lesser competition they've played this year. But we all know they got swept by Clemson, lost the series to Oklahoma, swept by Arkansas, sitting at 1-5 in SEC play. And guess what? You get the number 1 team in the country to come into town this weekend. So, you get swept this weekend, you're sitting at 1-8, and your NCAA tournament chances. And it's a huge, especially being in the SEC with how difficult it is. This feels like a must-win series for the Gamecocks. They really need to get their pitching back on track.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes back to our conversation at the beginning of the year when we saw that they were ranked 14th in the SEC preseason poll. We were kind of like, no. With Paul Maneri coming in, with Petrie, that talent on that roster, we're like, no. But Reed, when they play a good team, they are not playing well.
Yeah, well, I think I was about the only one
True.
in our group to call out. Colby, I know, had them. Some of y'all had them as a potential sleeper to get to them all. I said I agreed with I didn't necessarily have them 14th, but I said they would struggle a good bit this season. Still a lot of time to work out, but it feels like the panic button's been hit early for the South Carolina team.
Yeah, and also if you look at their lineups and their rotations, they are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Maneri's just trying to figure it out. I think that's how it's going to be for first-year head coach, new program, but it is not very consistent. But then again, why would you want to be consistent if your results are the same? They're not producing, so I respect it 100%. But going to be interesting, the direction of both those programs, North Carolina and South Carolina, kind of going through a little bit of a funk right now. I would say South Carolina more than North Carolina, but it doesn't get any easier for either program, no doubt about it, as the ACC is phenomenal. The SEC. Don't need to have an explanation there. And the final game on Tuesday night was Wofford with a 14-3 win over Troy. And Troy's coming off a massive series win at home versus Coastal Carolina. Reed, this Terriers team, hey, they are a good program. They have been, I think, 3 straight 40-win seasons for the Terriers, Reed, and they are on their way to make it 4.
Certainly do. That's a huge win. Helps their RPI. Troy is top 25 team. Obviously, they just beat Coastal this past weekend. So, that's only going to help the Terriers' confidence as, they go down to Citadel this upcoming weekend.
Yeah,
they do look well on their way to another 41 season.
Yeah, there's no question about that one for sure. And as we wrap up tonight, once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching, we're going to wrap this up with some quick little RPI talks, RPI updates. As of today, Coastal Clemson and North Carolina all in the top 10. Coastal at 4. Clemson at 6. Carolina at 8. Wake Forest at 38. South Carolina at 32 with a strength of schedule of 21. Reed, I guess that just plays the part with the teams that they are playing. And I know it's going to jump up this week, but even stepping on the field playing Tennessee. But South Carolina has the opportunities in front of them, Reed, to bolster this RPI.
Without a doubt. I mean, you win the series this weekend, they're just going to continue to shoot up in the RPI. I'll touch on Wake, though, a little bit. I mean, they played a dreadful non-conference schedule, but, I mean, ACC and SEC are the cream of the crop. Once you get into conference play, your RPI is going to skyrocket for ACC and SEC teams, like we all know.
Yes, sir. And Duke sitting at 45. Wilmington sitting at 57. NC State was 63. They had a big jump this past week. High Point 77. East Carolina at 93. Upstate 104. Wofford at 105. And Wofford's strength of schedule is 211th. So that is going to play a factor going forward with that RPI. Campbell at 118 with a strength of schedule of 30th in the country, which is very, very impressive. And just to go through some of these strengths of schedules, Queens has the 15th strength of schedule in the country. Just an absolute gauntlet as they did go to Knoxville this past week. So really just interesting there. And I'm gonna wrap up at the bottom. Gardner Webb at 292, North Carolina A&T at 279, Davidson at 252, UNC Asheville at 242, Elon at 224. Just really, really disappointing for those programs. Charleston
Davidson,
Southern,
first place in the A10 currently. You know, they're 10 and 13 overall, but they're sitting in first place at 5-1 in conference play right now. I know it's early.
After watching ECU, I don't want to watch any A10 baseball.
George Mason too.
George Mason, yeah.
Good team.
Yeah, and Charlotte, another big one. Charlotte at 125. App State 188. The App State's 188. Wow, that is a low RPI for a Sun Belt team. That may be the worst in Sun Belt, if I'm being honest with you. That has to be the worst.
Yeah.
Well, all right, folks. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching, thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to give us a like on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, subscribe on YouTube, join our Discord. A bunch of fun stuff on there. Be on the lookout tomorrow morning for our weekly slate. They will have all of your matchups, your records, your rankings, your times, where they'll be played, what stream, if they're on Stat Broadcast, AC Network, ESPN Plus, Flow Sports, that will be on there, as well as our Pick'em. Steven's Pick'ems will be out there too. We will post those so you can clown him if he's right or berate him if he is correct. Once again, Reed, thank you for coming on tonight. We did not have a full cast and crew with Braxton and Colby as they had other things going on, which is okay. We do have lives. As Braxton's dad comments, who is next guest? That will be a nice surprise for you all. We will have a nice special guest next week. Really looking forward to that person to come on. Once again, thank you, Steven, for coming on. That was a lot of fun. Wouldn't you say, Reed?
Yeah, I had a blast. Good to chat with Steven as always, and looking forward to an exciting weekend of college baseball. As we all know, my interest is shot in March Madness, so I will be watching the games very closely this weekend.
That is right, sir. And folks, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to enjoy the March Madness or the Mariners and Oakland A's, or not the Oakland A's anymore, just the A's. So, folks, enjoy your night. Thank you for watching tonight. We will see you on